Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Are you ready?
Yeah,
Perfect.
all righty. First item we have is the reappointment of a member of our advisory committee. John Phillips has been on our advisory committee since 2019 and has been a valuable member of our advisory committee. We have 3 members, and we would like to reappoint him for another 3-year term.
He does a good job.
Yes, he does.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
All right, on to loans. The city of Grand Forks is requesting $10,872,000 for the $17.2 million project in the Renta Lem 6 subdivision. They've requested a 25-year loan term, and they will repay this with special assessments in that area. And this will provide storm sewer and stormwater, pump station, and sanitary sewer. And there's also a complimentary drinking water loan that was below the $2 million threshold. And based on the information, the advisory committee recommended approval of this loan.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
The city of Mapleton, they've requested a $10.6 million loan from the Clean Water Fund. This is going to install a lift station and then approximately 5 miles of 14-inch force main. This will connect them to the city of West Fargo, and then from there, West Fargo connects to the city of Fargo's water reclamation facility. They've requested a 30-year loan term. They will issue revenue bonds payable with sewer user fees. Average annual payment on this will be $448,000. They're going to have a substantial increase in their rates. It'll be a $60 increase that they will implement over the next couple of years. And they are willing to make that increase because they know that it doesn't make sense to try to go to what they probably have to go to mechanical. Right now, they have lagoons. And it makes more sense to be a part of the regional system than to try to do this on their own and have a operator and deal with all the chemicals and everything themselves. So DEQ is behind them in doing this. And so based on that information and their willingness to raise their rates, they recommend approval of this loan.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
So they're gonna save money in some areas and spend it here, but long run, it's probably better off because it's not gonna do anything but get worse.
Yeah,
Trying
and
to
I just
contain.
want to highlight, there's no grant money on the clean water side. They're doing this on their own, no loan forgiveness. This is just the city's choice and how to most cost effectively deal with their wastewater.
That won't be the last one.
They just had like a city commission vote, straight vote. They didn't have any sort of community.
No, when it's health and safety.
Yeah.
You can just move forward. So.
Mhm.
All right.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
All right, and then we have the city of Fargo, and they are requesting, so they've got a clean water loan that needs your approval as well as a drinking water loan, but they are related, so I can just share with you, I guess, kind of same time if that's
Yeah.
all right? Okay. So the city of Fargo is requesting $20 million under each program. And this is the first time they've done it. We've talked about it for a long time in relation to repair and replacement of infrastructure in the city. So what they're estimating is their federal aid projects for 2025 through 2028. So this is your warning of areas to not drive in Fargo over that time period. So right now, and it's in chronological order, 32nd Avenue is their construction project. 2026 17th Avenue is going to be their construction project. So they've estimated the costs of the water and sewer that are under these DOT projects. So they'll be replacing the utilities as they replace the roads, and DOT is also cost sharing in the road replacement. So they're going to take care of the utilities at the same time that they do those road projects. So trying to be good stewards and get all of that taken care of at the same time, and then utilize the SRF program, which it's kind of unique. We haven't been able to, in the past, work far enough ahead with DOT and get the SRF bid requirements in with their bid package because they're so far ahead. But this will be the first time we've been able to do that. So we're pretty happy. And there's most of the state's SRF programs haven't been able to do it. So we're one of the leaders in being able to do it. We've got Mandan and I think one other city we're working with too to do that as well. They've requested a 30-year loan term. The average annual payment on these are going to be $864,000. They're going to issue revenue bonds. They'll be payable with their sales tax and then the related utility fund. The reason that they have both is because their city sales tax is going to sunset in December of 2028. So
How much for the sunsetting?
pardon me?
How much is sunsetting?
The sales tax is a 0.5% sales tax that they need to vote on. And so then we need that backup security should that not be extended. And so right now they've got great coverage on their water utility. They are one of our largest users. They've got 13 clean water loans, 6 drinking water loans, with outstanding balances of $303.5 million. And their coverage right now with the sales tax, they've got excess sales tax that they use of $3.3 million. So they've been using that pretty much exclusively, that 0.5% sales tax to repay the SRF loans. And then they also have great coverage with their utility funds and projected combined, when you combine both the sales tax and the utility revenues, great coverage as well. And based on that information, the advisory committee recommended approval of both the clean water loan and the drinking water loan.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So, and you've probably heard the same thing. Out in some of these communities, I know that taxpayers were getting rather frustrated with, they would go in and tear up a water line and come back, and replace it and come back a couple years later and then do the sewer line. And then they're like, my God, we keep replacing these roads. We keep having all these construction expenses when it could have been done all at once. And they're asking, how come people are that way? How come they're doing it? So it's good when they're thinking ahead and they're getting some of these projects done so that in the long run, it's saving. But yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but in reality, not as much as it could.
Yeah, and it's 2% versus going out in the market at 4%. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm done. Sorry.
No, when we get to other business, before you leave, I talked to Karen about this too, and I'll mention something kind of overall with that process. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
Covered both of those? Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty, then we just have a memo of the 4 loans that were below the $2 million threshold. There was the Elgin project, similar, but a much smaller scale than Fargo. And then Grand Forks, the companion drinking water project, and then Lake City, Napoleon. If you have any questions, I can answer those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Do I get other business
New
now?
business.
I mentioned this to Karen, they passed a study on wastewater this session. And I think Mapleton's like a good example. I mean, they want to start talking. I mean, they're doing that cash management allocation in the Water Commission budget. There's a cash management study that will work closely with the bank, SIB, and that I'm chairing. But if anybody recalls, during the session, they wanted to just throw 50 million into a municipal wastewater fund. And then we had the BRIC grants come out from feds and we had to deal with some of those issues. And I think this conversation is going to continue to move because I'm not entirely sure how many communities like Mapleton would be willing to absorb a $60 increase. And we're going to have more talk about that. And my point to the legislature during that was putting in that 50 million. Once you do it, you're in the game forever. And before we start looking at it, we should actually look at it. And then through that conversation, we recognize that there are a lot of smaller communities that don't have the financial data or the bandwidth to actually apply for some of this stuff. So I told Karen we should make sure and track that study and make sure they have all of this information available. But I think you'll start seeing more of this dual infrastructure, and I think you'll start seeing more municipalities talking to each other. And I also think in our smaller communities, you'll see more citizens being willing to absorb a $60 increase, because that's where the property tax relief is going to be the most significant right away. I mean, I don't know what the average property tax value is in Mapleton. I guarantee you it's less than Bismarck or Fargo. And so as they have to start, and there are a lot of smaller communities across the state that have real rural water or real infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure problems. And so I think it's worthy to have the conversation, but you know as well as I do, every time you take a dollar out of the Water Commission budget for ag communities or for agriculture, you're going to get into some of these fights. So I think it's something we as a commission, we as a Water Commission should be paying attention to with the legislature. I also think when you are going to cap 3% property tax budgets, they're going to have a harder time ripping that street up every 3 years. And it's going to force different departments and municipalities to maybe wait a year to do a project, but to coordinate it with themselves and state agencies. So also, hopefully, we'll allow our small local city commissions to not get beat up too bad if they have to absorb some of these cost increase, because we'll be bringing down the other side of it, and funds are fungible to a taxpayer. So.
Agreed.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
I think the days of the city or county selling school. But it's their, that's pretty quick what they have to do on the back end of it, which I think is a good point.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Oh, no, okay.
Kathy, you'll have to unmute.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Kathy.
Great. This morning I have before you attachment number 7, which is a request for authorization to transfer our profits. We look to close our books on July 21st for the end of the fiscal year, and then would have our transfers done no later than July 24th of 2025. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think all we have to do is make a motion to allow that transfer to take place. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you for the tour.
Yes, thank you for coming to see us.
I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
To be honest, we get that response a lot, and that's why we're so excited to show off what we are here at the mill.
Awesome place. Great job.
Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
And then for other business, we don't really have anything pressing. Just to give you an update, the policy review that went out, we did receive 5 proposals. So we're currently in the process of reviewing those. We're also still currently in the process in coming to an agreement with the union for them to vote on. So so that is still working towards that, and was also had to thank the governor for coming to visit us. So those were the items that I had on the other business.
Good IC staff the day before, right?
Yes, we did. Yep, we had Jordan and Brenna and Aaron join us on that Monday. So it was a busy week for us.
Did you have the governor write up on that conveyor, or is he too important? That's just something you had me do.
I was not offered.
I
Yeah.
I don't think we offered that to you,
It's dangerous.
Attorney General.
What's
I
that?
think that was, I don't think that we offered that to you. I think that was something that you decided to do on your own.
Maybe you call it that way too.
Yeah.
And as a boss, who's gonna tell you no?
All of a sudden, I'm going
That's
down looking
right.
at all these guys, "You're watching." I said, "Am I not supposed to do this?" They're like, "No, you're supposed to be a trained professional."
Turns out I have to come back.
Yes.
You have to go back.
Well, we
That's
do
quite something.
certainly hope that you will all be able to come back and see the MIDS facility. We are getting closer to getting that completed as well. We're hoping to actually be testing some conveyors and those things right after the 4th of July here. So we're getting very close there as well.
Great.
Well, thanks for everything you do up there.
Yep,
Thank you.
the state-of-the-art facility.
That's wild.
Oh, and now we get to, I should say we get to, I think we probably exclaim that this is the largest mill in the Western Hemisphere and run very well.
Thank you.
All right, Housing Finance Agency, you guys are up.
My God.
I would first of all offer you're welcome to come have a tour of our building, but we don't have any conveyor belts. We do have an elevator sometimes we get stuck, so that's.
This building needs them.
You could hang a rope from the ceiling in the
Going up
elevator.
to
and you can hang
17.
on it.
I have 17 jump out my window.
Ready?
We
Okay. Well, the first item before you is a request for the Industrial Commission to approve the issuance of multifamily revenue bonds for Pleasant Valley Apartments Series 2025 in an amount not to exceed 9.5 million. So what I would like to do first is just give you a little background of our bond issuances for multifamily. So the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program has a 4% and a 9% option. The 9% is competitive. We get a certain volume of credits annually, which is the small state minimum of about $3.9 million. The 4% credits are unlimited in that we are able to offer those 4% credits to anyone who qualifies, but in order to qualify, you must be at least 50% financed by tax exempt financing. So that is why this bond request is coming forth, because that'll cover that 50% to allow them to access the 4% credits. So it's a great option for us. The reason why this program is kind of picking up, prior to 2015, our agency had issued maybe 2 multifamily bonds. And the reason why is they tend to be more valuable to larger projects than North Dakota can offer. And also, there's a lot of attorneys and soft costs that are involved with a bond issuance that if you have these smaller deals, it's, it doesn't have far to spread over the cost of the project. So with that, they're becoming more valuable now because number one, our credit authority under 9% is so competitive. We're oversubscribed by double plus every year. And then number two, the bond market is a little bit more favorable than our traditional market has been. So it has been working out. Other benefit though is because we have the housing incentive. So the 4% tax credits can pay for up to about 25% of the total project cost, where our 9% credits cover up to 65%. So that creates a gap, and HIF fills that gap. So because we have HIF available we prioritize bond requests in our HIF program so that those projects can rise to the top, and then we can access this unlimited 4% credit. So with that, the Pleasant Valley Apartments, also to note, rehab deals are easier to get through a bond deal than new construction. Why that is, I think it really has to do with the risk that's involved with new construction. That rehab, they're already existing, and it's just easier for people to buy into that. So with that, Pleasant Valley Apartments is a 60-unit general occupancy Section 8 project located in Dickinson. It's called Southview 1, 2, and 3 right now.
It also is in desperate need for rehab.
It is in desperate need of a rehab. And so
It
we're
has been
very
for a long
excited.
time.
We're very excited. Section 8 properties are also very desirable to enter into the bond market because they have project-based rental assistance, which helps with the operating so that the rents that they can collect can go to the payment standards of the Section 8 program. So that's also a benefit and why these types of projects try to go through this market first. So the total development costs are currently estimated at $15.5 million. And this bond transaction is going to be pretty much a traditional transaction, which is a construction loan through Bridgewater Bank. Once that's completed and the project is stabilized, which means that 90% occupancy has occurred, the bonds will be converted into a physical governmental note purchased by Lument, and Freddie Mac will commit to purchasing the note from Lument after completion. So traditional bond, tax-exempt multifamily revenue bond with a trust indenture, loan agreement, regulatory agreement, and a bond purchase agreement is what we're asking for you to approve. Also note, you are approving the operative documents that then Brandon will be able to execute on our behalf and on your behalf. They are in substantial form, meaning that the bonds cannot exceed 9.5 million. That's kind of a moving target now. It's going to be somewhere less than that. I think right now I see maybe 7.5 million, but 9.5 is the maximum it can go. Interest rate that's being approved is not to exceed 12%. I think we're at about 6.5 or 6.9% right now. So it's just some moving targets there, but the general terms of this agreement are all within the document.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
And so I'll be much quicker on this one for you because Wild Rose Senior Apartments is another multifamily revenue bond. We are requesting the approval to issue those bonds not to exceed $5.6 million. Wild Rose is an acquisition rehab of an existing 48-unit general occupancy project, currently known as Southside Living, also was known as Guardian Manor in Minot. It also is in pretty tough shape. So this is an old low-income housing tax credit project that is in its 28th year of service, and year 30 is when low-income housing tax credits are done. So it is on its 28th year. We're going to lose it if we don't try to get this new organization involved and have it rehab. So I'm really looking forward to preserving that existing affordability. And the developer is a senior, American Covenant Senior Housing Foundation from Montana. It's their first experience in our state, but we did call our sister agency in Montana and ask them how their experience has been with this company. And so they've been pleased. They do good work with senior housing. They provide supportive services and activities for seniors. So this will be a good project. This is a little bit different of a transaction in that it's going to be a tax exempt loan. So we're going to issue these bonds, which will then be converted into a tax exempt loan that the Churchill Stateside Group is going to be issuing to the project.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Other business we had, just to give you an update on our, last time we were here, we lowered our income limits for our first home program. And just giving an update, it is working exactly as we had hoped. So we'll continue to, we're only about 4 weeks into it, so we'll keep watching it, but it's doing exactly as we hope, lowering it. Other things we're watching is some of the federal budgets coming out of Washington, the big beautiful bill. Some of that's going to could affect a lot of Jennifer's programs. I don't know if you want to talk to some of those programs and how that could.
Yeah,
possibly affect
so
those.
in the current budget proposal, the home program is something that we get the small state of $3 million, but we use it for down payment assistance with the community land trusts, single family rehab for ownership, and then multifamily deals as well. That has been proposed to be zeroed out. It's not the first time that it's been proposed to be zeroed out by this administration, so it has still been going on, but we do. We don't have any idea of where the final numbers are going to come, but it could be a $3 million loss. The other thing that is being proposed is the Continuum of Care, which is a homeless program that we received $3.9 million from federal, is looking to be changed to a block grant program and then put into our emergency solutions grant. What does that mean as far as the dollar amount? Our state currently receives a small state minimum of $485,000 for ESG. So if it gets turned into a combined block grant and there's a small state minimum, it'll be interesting to know what that dollar amount will be. So that's kind of the biggest things that we're kind of watching out for. Thankfully, the $10 million for the North Dakota Homeless Grant will kind of help in that area too.
Yeah, nothing coming out of Washington's going to affect our tax income bonds or anything like that. So that's safe.
So how's the Senate responding to some of these issues? I mean, they're in the bill, but it all depends on how the Senate's having a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Haven't heard it.
Haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
I mean, we've heard speculation, but nothing definitive yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great Fourth. Right, now we're gonna talk to the bank.
Bankers are in the house.
Brought you present.
Sign this.
Like meeting.
There's some tiny copies out there.
I'm at a point in my life where I don't require to.
Oh, you don't?
Hey, how do we, I want to know how do we get the dog?
Yeah, we need to come over to the mascot.
See us.
Arms upstairs.
No, he's getting.
Yeah, we're sitting already.
My dog.
Hey, thank you. Okay, first order of business on our non-confidential agenda is a EOS update, but before we get there, I think we should talk about the disaster out east due to the storm. So, brought Craig with? Yes, Craig's here. So our protocol in these, and we've gone through this many times with historical floods, even with the most recent disaster kind of at all across the state in agriculture, where we assign a team, and Craig Hansen, our chief banking officer, usually leads it, gathering information first and foremost, and that's the stage that we're in. So any information, I know there's some tours that have been done, any information coming our way, we welcome it. So we gather it from you guys, from bankers in the region, from customers in the region, from some of our association partners, and really gather what is the amount of the damage, where are the needs, and then compare that to what solutions are out there. We never want to get in the way of the private market or in the way of the federal assistance, if there is some, but we look for where are those gaps and where truly is that need at. So we're right in that stage. Craig has some initial information, and then we'd like to hear from you guys what you've seen out on your tours out there, what you know, and then we will culminate that into customizing solutions that meet those material needs and I think Craig, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give what our preliminary information is coming.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Yeah, very well said. I think preliminarily, to tie into exactly what Don was saying, is what we're hearing from stakeholders and community bankers throughout the state is really centered around, you think on the ag side with regards to crop issues or crop damage, as well as mostly on the storage side with regards to bin storage across site on farm, but also off farm at grain elevators, whether it be scale sites or what have you. There's issues there too. So a lot of, I think preliminarily concern around that, what that does, how and what they do with the crop when they harvest it this fall, is what we're really hearing. And so I think as we think about the corn, we're hearing the corn has so far, what we know is the corn has been, strategically speaking, has been okay, leaning a little bit, but nothing overly terrible at this point in time. But on the bean side, they're kind of forcing to think about some reseeding options there.
They were doing it yesterday.
Some real damage.
They were resetting
Yeah,
yesterday.
so that's what we're hearing. There's some discussion on insurance versus some seed options on how things are covered and what costs are there as well. And so I think as we think about that, it's really centered around what happens around storage and what happens if and need and what the needs are around the crop side on the farm for these guys is what we know thus far. And it's somewhat sporadic, but bin damage is pretty severe and extensive.
Yeah, like probably over 20 million bushels. Significant. I have some thoughts. You want to go?
Sure.
Or you want me to go? You pick.
Well, the only thing I would probably say, and then we can discuss some things and you can share some stuff. Yeah, it's not as though we probably don't have a lot of this property that's insured. I don't think that's the biggest issue. It's timing is going to be the issue, labor, materials. And I think right now there's anxiety because harvest is coming. And some of these farms may only have 1 or 2 bins left that are usable. They're trying to clean up at the moment. Really, I think 6 weeks from now, we get a better picture of what's going on. First of all, I'd like to know what the bankers are coming back with, because if they have something they need to do, then they're going to go to their banker. And then your guys going to get that feedback. Then you'll start thinking about something you can bring to us, talk about what the next step may be. Same way with the livestock facilities, some of the livestock handling facilities and equipment, buildings. That'll be interesting to see what actually people are saying and what's being reported. And I know Extension is asking people to, or we're asking people to report some stuff to Extension. And again, I know I got a question the other day, or are we looking for a presidential declaration or a secretarial? And it's, no, we just want to know what's going on so that we have the ability to respond, because reporters ask questions. No, with that, Governor, please.
I agree with 99% of that. And I'll tell you why. I mean, first of all, I want to go through some things that I do think we need more information on, but I don't want to lose. We know, I mean, crop loss and submissions, pivots are going to be an issue. A lot of pivots were destroyed. As one farmer told me, how come my old pivots are survived and my new pivots are gone? I mean, those questions. Crop loss, all of that. One thing I don't want to lose off this is if a small town business closes down, the chances of it reopening are 0. And if they're not 0, they're close to 0. I mean, Page has a bar and grill. It's literally the only place in town where you can get a burger and you can have a meal. And they have damage too. And so when we talk about this at scale and everything like that, I think it's really important to recognize that those small businesses in those communities are the lifeblood to that ag community as well. The dollar amounts are smaller, but I don't want those to slip through the cracks of things we do. And
True enough.
DC and COVID is a perfect example. You figure out really quickly where like bar restaurants and service industries sit on cash flow. I mean, prior to a tornado hitting, I'm betting that the Page Bar and Grill had 3 months cash flow, let alone what they're trying to dump into that. But I think when you're talking about those things, we need more information. We need as much as we can. There were a lot of conversations in the last couple days. I think what we do know is storage, the Arthur elevators trashed, the Hunter elevators trashed. we saw a bin 1.5 miles away from a farmstead yesterday. I think the vast majority of that stuff is going to be insured. The problem is if we wait 6 to 8 weeks to get through that process, we will run into zero chance any of this stuff gets built by September 1st. So I think the ebb and flow to this is if back end, it's insured, it's a safer bridge loan for us. But also I think there are companies in the Midwest that we have a better likelihood of getting up here to do this work if we do it at scale. And I think there needs to be some semblance of urgency we know right now that the storage issue and the drying issue is whatever we do is still going to be an issue in September and is going to be an issue in October. But we have 20 million, correct, available with the debt? 37. Well, you could pick a number higher than that because we will go past that before we get to that. What I would like to see in the very near future is some semblance of a way to bridge that gap because you got insurance agents that, they can work 75 hours a week for the next 6 weeks and they're not going to get to everywhere. And I am not saying storage and drying is the only issue. I do think it's one we can counteract with a sense of urgency. And I think we have an ability to do that, making sure we're first in line on an insurance claim, all the smart things you do. But the sooner we can get some certainties to these ag producers and to be honest, some of these elevators, that they know that they have whatever, a short-term bridge loan, 1%, however. Now, the second part to this is I think we have to talk to some of these people and make sure whatever we do is something that works for them. We can sit here and say, yes, we'll do that immediately and tie up X number of millions of dollars and nobody takes advantage of it.
Yeah.
But the one thing I heard yesterday was there needs to be a sense of urgency on storage because if we wait, we won't get any of it up. And every bin we get up is one less temporary storage emergency plan we have to do. And so if it works and we get 50 up, great. If it works and we get 40 up, great. And like I said, I think more of it is the velocity in which they can have some reasonableness to say, I know I have this, so I will order it tomorrow. And then if you get, my advice to any of these farmers in the local area is coordinate with each other. What I worry about is them competing with each other, right? Yeah. Like I can get a crew here if I do this. And they're not, everybody puts on their own oxygen mask before they help others, right? We all get that message. But I think if there's some coordination, we have a much more significant chance of getting people, other companies, people who do this work to do it because it's at scale. If they're coming up to put 30 of them up, that's a pretty good business model for anybody who puts bins up versus a one at a time when one person gets an insurance claim versus 6 weeks later when another person gets an insurance claim. And I think we all have to approach this situation with we're not making anybody whole by October 1st. It is wildly devastating up there. You drive into the town of Hunter and you look at all the trees down and you're like, this is unbelievable. You go to the landfill and look at the 2 piles of trees they've already put in the landfill and you start to get a really good idea of how much work they have that has occurred in the last 2 days. I don't want to shoot point aim. I don't think that is a smart policy. I think everybody wants immediacy and we are still gathering information for a state declaration. I should tell you, I talked to all 3 of the delegation. I talked to Brooke Rollins. I've made them aware we don't know what we're asking for yet, but there's going to be an ask. But right now these guys are feeling, somebody who has total crop loss on their cornfield is in a better position than somebody who lost all their bins and still has corn.
Yeah.
That is just accurate. So I think that there is a way in which we can help these people by doing something that will be fairly low risk to us, but also get it out the door so they can start talking to people and seeing if they can get some of this done. And I think we should talk to the elevator in Arthur. I think we should talk to the elevator in Hunter. And I think we should talk to these guys up there who have lost their storage and find out what we develop that would be usable for them sometime in the next 14 days.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're going to run into, yeah, you can order it, we'll get it next spring. And I would also, the one thing I wouldn't leave drying off of that.
Right.
Like, I mean, storage is great, but drying is part of it. And the reason I'm comfortable doing that is, one, like I said, the vast majority of that stuff is going to be insured. And the second part of it is, if we don't, we are going to be figuring out temporary emergency storage situations, or these guys are going to have to dump their grain in. And I mean, it's one thing for the farmer to have to dump his grain. The elevators are going to have to do it as well. They don't have the capacity to deal with this. And I don't know how many we could get up if we started tomorrow, but I know we'll get more up the sooner we start than the longer we wait.
You know how much capacity you lost at Hunter and
They're talking 20 million bushels of storage. I mean, and I think, I mean, that was going, that I'm always, I mean, I was told Page was gone Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So in a weird scenario, I was pleasantly surprised when I drove into Page yesterday, because Page is beat up, but it still exists.
Was that 20 million on the elevators alone? And I only asked Jim Lear, our senior ag banker, he had some feedback from some bankers in the area that the estimate was about 50 million in total storage affected.
I'm trying not to over exaggerate. 20 million of storage is already a lot.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that number is going to continue to climb, which means we're going to be having real conversations as the summer goes on about what we're doing for temporary storage, whether it's bags, whether it's converting non-elevators into storage. So, but I mean, I am not an expert on the economy of putting up grain bins, but I am smart enough to know that the economies of scale, you have a better chance to get somebody up here to do this work if this is being deployed in a regional area, which we already have. Unfortunately, they got hammered pretty hard. It's wider than most of ours. But also, if they have the capacity to do more than one at a time, the likelihood of getting them put up will be better.
Yeah.
Governor, in your, I was gonna say your tour yesterday, so what about, I mean, you mentioned, you know, kind of the small town businesses, but on the residential side, what were your observations there?
So in the places where there were more straight line winds, you had, like in Hunter, it was mostly garages and they got tons of roof issues. And then you're getting into shingles and depreciation and a conversation that, I mean, we'll be talking to Commissioner Gottfried and all of that. And the straight line wind, I mean, the John Deere place in Hunter, I mean, the building collapsed. You go to where the tornado was and I mean, it was like 3 different storms in the 3 different areas I was. You're down by Enderlin and it's normal, massive and complete total destruction. Quarter mile away, normal. You go up to Page and it is straight line wind, some residential, some building damage. But I mean, some of it's, what do you notice? You notice all the bins. I mean, they're just destroyed. Like, I mean, that side of it. And so I think you're going to have a bunch of those issues too. The frustrating part from our standpoint is if you lost your entire house, I mean, that's where we'll work with DES to help them navigate insurance and do all of that.
Okay.
I am not saying that the storage issue is the most important thing to people's actual lives right now. I think it's the one we can help with immediate action. And I think it's one of the things where I don't think we need, like, globally. Yeah. It's pretty easy to look at it and say storage is going to be a problem in 2 months. So like how we deploy that, I think is different. I mean, a lot of these guys are privately insured. They're going to have those issues. They're going to have a lot of that stuff. And same thing with pivots, right? I think if we did a program tomorrow, I don't know, could you get 200 pivots into the Red River Valley in the next 6 weeks? Like, do they exist on the planet? And then, and those have I learned a lot about like pivot insurance yesterday. Turns out I didn't know a lot about it. You know, I think this isn't the last conversation we're going to have about this storm. This is the first one. And my approach is target on the one thing you can do the most good with the quickest, And then we can work out to the other things as we gather more information. The other answer I should say is there is no corresponding federal program for this.
No.
Nothing exists. If we don't do it, if we don't do something, they're on their own, or we're going through a slower process. Now, my problem is I don't think we are in a position to say this is exactly what we're going to do yet, because I think we have to make sure it works for them, both at the commercial and the private side. And you guys, running like how we would start, we want it as flexible as possible because we want them to use it as quickly as possible. We want as low as interest as possible because I anticipate most of these will be essentially a bridge loan until they get an insurance claim and an insurance check. And so,
That's really good feedback, and my mind goes to breaking it down to immediate and then still work on the longer term solutions as well. I think in the Minot flood, we ended up doing $30,000 and $50,000 signature loans that were immediate, provided some immediate funding for some of those immediate recovery needs before winter set in, and that program performed very, very well. So that's some version of that is probably a potential solution. So we will get to work on it.
And I want to be clear, we're going to have another storage conversation. We're not going to build all this stuff in 3 months. It's not going to happen, but.
Yeah, I think as it evolves, we'll hear more about from the community bankers and that are talking to their producers to understand what are those true viable options that they're looking at doing. Is it truly more bags and they need baggers and unloaders and those types of things? Is that where it goes?
But if we solve the first problem, which is the certainty in short-term financing, then if there's a second problem that arises, maybe it's a problem we can solve or help solve. Maybe it's a problem we can help solve, like labor to build them. But we can have those conversations. I think the first step is the first step, and letting these guys know if they have access to somebody who will sell them 3 bins and their insurance agents tell them, like, guys, I'm as swamped as you are. It's going to take me 6 weeks to give you this. It's pretty easy to look at a set of bins that no longer exist and be like, well, that's a total loss.
Yeah.
Whenever you're doing something like this, you are taking, the faster you move, the less likelihood of getting everything right. And I think that's always a balance. But I think in the storage and the drying area, we can be pretty confident in saying, A, this is going to be a need September 1st, no matter what program we implement. But anything we can do to offset that for those guys up there is going to be really, really helpful to the overall ag community in North Dakota, both at the public and the private side.
Let me just cover the Rebuilders program real quick.
Yeah, we do. Are you guys familiar with the Rebuilders program?
Yep.
2 sessions ago, we got that approved. This last session, we got the language kind of amended to open up so the governor had more flexibility on when to declare this. It essentially is set up for a situation like this where we can gather the information, customize solutions that fit those gaps, fit those needs, and then we're able, that allows us to keep us off balance sheet. Where we can administer, and that's the 37 million. But you do have options if we go over that. I kind of suspect we'll go over that too, just based on initial estimates. There are options where the Industrial Commission can borrow from the bank to support that off balance sheet, or we can get into capital at your good discretion. So there are options here. I think this is a program we would run under and customize within that.
And to be clear, like the information gathering side of this becomes, we have to be able to deploy that stuff knowing what the real issues are. The only reason I talk about this one in this space is we know it exists.
Yeah.
And we also know that the faster people,
Yeah, we will, our sense of urgency is heightened, and it's really, really good feedback, and we'll start thinking about it in terms of the immediate solutions and then still work the long-term solutions as well. So we will work quickly on this.
So the other thing, when you communicate out, part of it's, certainly getting the data back, but if people are going to respond right away, sometimes they may think of this, sometimes they don't, unless they have different types of bins on their farms, but they're not interchangeable. They're not general in nature. So one company, because I got this, does a 43.8 diameter bin and the next one does a 42. So you can't just put a different bin on top of that concrete and make it work. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. New lag bolts, all that stuff has to be thought about. So if they're thinking about this right away, they can call and talk to wherever they got their bins from if they want to put that same one up, or they're going to have to work with another company. And the sooner they do that, the sooner they can respond to utilizing this program to maybe get something done. But they may or may not think about it.
I think we can get storage up by harvest. Do I think we'll get it all up? No, absolutely
No.
not. But I think we haven't, I mean, I think we have an option to get it up by harvest, but I think this is one of those issues. And I have no idea what the supply chain on drying equipment is. Not, I mean, I don't know. But
And harvest is 60 days away. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, grain handling equipment, I did hear the legs, all that. A lot of them were saying, they think they could probably get that fixed, replaced yet this year, but what do you attach it to?
Yeah.
Just because you have it doesn't mean it's going anywhere. They have something to attach it to, so.
the other answer is if we narrowly focus it immediately, it's easier for you guys to implement. There's less chance of the waste, fraud, and abuse that always comes in these programs. I mean, if we narrow, I think if we move fast, which I think we have to, we should tailor it to one specific need, and then we can slow down. And I mean, and by slow down, I mean move as fast as possible after we have adequate information to move. So.
Okay, we will get to work on it.
One thing I noticed going through there yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, the immediate need to clear what is a debris field. I've never seen, you see, I've seen we've all seen grain bins hit by storms and they crumple up. These were literally debris fields across entire quarters of land, and it looked like a bomb had gone off or a plane had crashed, frankly. And there's a lot of crop out there, and it just strikes me there's going to be an immediate need to get that out of. I mean, there is. I don't know how they're going to do it. There's miles of this as you drive down that corridor. I don't know where they're going to get the people, but it just struck me as a unique situation.
One of the coolest things I saw yesterday, and in the midst of all this absolute devastation, we were at a house that was built into a hill that was completely destroyed, and the field to the north was completely cleaned with piles all the way across it. The Lions Club had cooked for everybody, and the FFA kids came out and cleaned. I don't know how many quarters they did.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I mean, I think everybody always thinks about this, and they think like FEMA has a tactical team, which is never how FEMA has worked in these things. And same thing with the Guard and all of that. Everybody remembers that. But like when I was in the tornado in Dickinson, when I was on the fire department, the Guard came to do security. Like by the time the Guard got, and that was very localized in one half or 1/3 of one community. The amount of work that, and the amount of volunteers and the amount of first responders who have their own stuff going on, right? Their house's roof is a problem, and the amount of work that has been done since Saturday morning. And I'll say this again, I said it about 5 times yesterday. We talked first responders and we talked Cass County Sheriff, which the Sheriff's Office did a fantastic job. We talked fire departments, but the amount of people that were working to get power back on, whether it's Otter Tail, and they all help each other. And doing that, we went from 37,000 people without power Saturday morning to yesterday when I got out there under 300 in 48 hours. And so, I mean, Paige had we helped them locally source a generator so they had a place to put insulin in the fridge and do all of that. And I mean, it is amazing how fast North Dakotans respond to help their friends and family.
That is.
And thank you, Dave, and your colleagues for getting the word out and really helping to connect communities.
There's another part of this, which is emergency services and sirening and cell phones and all of this that we're going to have to, I mean, as technology is advancing as fast as it is and dealing with this, we're also overly reliant. Like when the cell tower went down in Enderlin, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody goes back to the Stone Age in a really quick hurry. So how we build in redundancies in emergency systems, and you know, and the capacity to do that with the newest tech. But also, I mean, I think if you asked anybody in Enderlin, they'd like a second siren. Like, I mean, I think they would ask for a second siren right now. And so, I mean, we will do after action as we go through this and figure out where the state was good, where the state needs to do better, how we transition with, I mean, I mean, not every local emergency manager is created equal, right? Some of them have been there for 30 years. Some of them have been there for a week. And so we will figure out what we did well and figure out what we have to improve on as well.
Good direction for us. Thank you. And good information for us. We will move forward. All right, switch over. I'm going to introduce you to Traction EOS. So I've got a PowerPoint. Governor, I'd like to point out it's a 2-slide PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Not 52, 2 PowerPoint. I did bring you some light reading material. Yep, you can choose to read that at your leisure or not.
Staff.
There you go.
There will be a test.
Why Traction US for Bank of North Dakota? Our industry is changing. Things are rapidly evolving. I've talked about this in the transition strategic framework conversations that we've had around fintech, around energy in the state, and agriculture, which we are a part of, the material capital flows in those two huge industries. A lot changing around talent management. The world is becoming more complex, not less complex. The world is becoming more volatile, not less volatile. And the world is becoming more polarized, not less polarized. In that complex environment and in a frame where the Bank of North Dakota has a tremendous 106-year legacy, right, of mission, accomplishment, always being there when needed, being there for disasters, supporting the state, supporting North Dakota commerce, agriculture, and industry, all of those things. And yet in this complex environment, it is time to start evolving Bank of North Dakota to maintain relevance and maintain mission fulfillment for the next 106 years. That's what I'm more concerned about. Traction EOS is a simplified, it's the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a managerial system to run complex organizations on. I have about 5 years experience with it. It's the best one that I've found in my experience. The best example to explain it at a high level is I used to be part of the team putting together a 52-page strategic document, hiring a consultant to come in once a year for 2 days, paying $35,000. It was a beautiful document, 52 pages, charts, graphs, SWOT analysis, narrative, you name it, beautiful document. Nobody read it for the next year. It became irrelevant to the organization.
Like a 20-page slide deck.
Like a 20-page slide deck. The strategic plan that Traction forces the managerial team, the governance team to get to is 2 pages. 2 pages, max of 2 pages. I'm kind of projecting that with my 2-page slide deck. That's the power and the simplicity of this system. It also has 5 foundational tools in it that help them keep that crystallized vision, that crystallized strategy, that is that more clearly painted picture in a 2-page document. Keep it alive for 187 staff members at the Bank of North Dakota every day that they come into work. That's the real power of this system. So to explain that a little more visually to you, on the these are the buckets of the Traction pie, and it starts at the top with that vision and the 8 questions answered by all. When it says by all, it means by all the staff of the Bank of North Dakota, because we are all one team at the Bank of North Dakota. The 8 questions start with, what are the true core values? What is the core focus? What is the passion that is bringing everybody to work each day? What are we fulfilling on? Then it gets very, very clear and specific about what is the 10-year target, a decade out, what do we want this bank to look like? Then it works backwards for that and say, okay, well, in 3 years then, what do we need to look like? What's that very clear picture of the organization in 3 years that if we know if it looks like that in 3 years, we're pretty assured it's going to look like that a decade from now. So then it backs up further on the second page and goes, okay, if we know where we're going to be 10, and we can be very clear where we're going to be at in 3, what are we going to get done this year? And then it goes further, what are we going to get done this quarter? What quarterly rocks are we going to get done? And then it backs back further and says, what are we going to get done this week? And what as I am a staff member going to do today? And if I can get 180 staff members going, I'm going to do this today, that lines up to accomplishment of the week, accomplishment of the quarterly rock, which gets me on track to the annual goals, which gets me on track to the 3-year picture, which then we're pretty assured that 187 staff are aligned and motivated and clear that we're going to be here in a decade. That's what this gives us in that first bucket up top, which is 8 questions shared by all. We are stepping off in that this summer. We have our first focus day coming up next week. We will be spending the summer to build that, what's called the Vision Traction Organizer, the VTO. That will become our strategic Bible. It's what we will share with you. I will share it with legislators. I will share it with the staff on an ongoing basis. It will become our strategic Bible. Then if you move to the left, then it's the next concept is the right people in the right seats. And this is twofold. We look a deep dive through the structure of the organization. You take the people out of it for a second. You say, working backwards from the business needs of the organization, do we have the right functional structures in place across? And you make the adjustments. Then you transpose the people onto that structure and make adjustments and make sure you have the right people in the right seats. Then we learn how to work through a process called IDS, which is identify, discuss, solve issues. Because as with any business, there are always issues. With any governance body, there's always issues. This gives us a better way to work through issues at a strategic level to make sure we stay on the same page, we stay aligned to our vision, those 8 questions answered by all, and we move forward on the same page. Then you pause there and you move up to the right-hand side of the pie chart, which is data, scorecard, and measurables. Now, banks, we've got tremendous amounts of data. We have data coming out of our ears. But what is lacking in the banking industry is that conversion of data to intelligence. Intelligence that can affect decision-making in a better and more positive way. So this is where we're working on that. And then finally, we look at our processes. Now, again, like data, banks have, 584 different procedures. This is asking at a 20,000 foot level, are all your various procedures in a functional area, call it credit, or call it human resources, or call it our marketing. In that functional area, are all those procedures lined up against a core process that you as a bank want those procedures to line up to? Is it warm and authentic, and does it handle humans well? Or is it cold and digital and very, very, to AI? That's the questions we answered on process. We fulfill on all of those all the time, and we start getting traction as an organization. We start fulfilling on our goals and fulfilling on our financial metrics and fulfilling on our growth and fulfilling on our mission better than we ever have before. To wrap up, this is the process. So we've gone through the 90-minute meeting on the left to learn about this. We're about to have our focus day next week. We're going to spend the focus day and the 2 vision building days. This is the start of it. This is the one-time start where we build the VTO and we introduce the leadership team to the 5 foundational tools. Then we enter an annual cycle, which is every quarter we have a pulse meeting that we come in and we say, okay, we review our VTO again and we adjust if needed. And we say, how was the quarter? And we set rocks for the next quarter. And then we learn more about the traction system and the concepts. We do that each quarter. Every year, one of those quarters, and for us, it'll be the October quarter, we take 2 days and we do annual planning. So this is not bring somebody in and help with a 2-day strategic plan and write it, but forget about it. This is build it and then keep it alive quarterly throughout your organization. That circle on goes forever. This is the path we're stepping out on. Like I said, I've had very, very strong success with this in my past. Best system I've found. I've taken about 10 months here to kind of assess, does BND need this? Will this work for BND? And I am thoroughly convinced that BND absolutely needs this. This is the best system for the Bank of North Dakota. I'm super excited about stepping off in it. This is a journey. So I will be talking to you about traction as we go forward. This is not a one and done. This is just an opening teaser for our board of directors on this is strategically what we're stepping off into. It will be a journey, like it's a journey for us. It'll be a journey for you guys as well. I will be bringing more and more and more information in bite-sized chunks as we move along. So I'll stop there for any questions or feedback.
Might talk just a bit about the evolution of reporting I want to be bringing to them.
Yeah, it will change the over time. Again, that journey will. Thank you, Kelvin. It will change the reporting. So the VTO is what you'll start seeing. You'll start seeing that quarterly. Our ROC completion rates, our annual goal completion rates. You'll have a much clearer picture of where our heads are at and where we want to go. And then our scorecard will be more in-depth and more robust in terms of reporting the critical functional areas of the bank. Rather than just kind of the most lagging performance highlights, we'll be talking to you about here's what credit's doing, here's what marketing's doing, here's what HR is doing, here are these things. So there will be an evolution of reporting to you as well, which hopefully you find very, very, very beneficial. That's what I have.
Interesting.
With that primer, we actually read that. Like it. Yeah, it sounds like the best chance of the strategic plan actually being.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's
exactly.
I love what we said.
Okay. All right, I think that's the end of our non-confidential agenda.
Minutes of non-confidential library board and committee minutes in the binders to review. And at this point, we will go into executive session.
Governor, I move that under the authority of the North Dakota Century Code sections 6-09-35 and 44-04-19.2, that the Industrial Commission enter into an executive session for the purpose of Bank of North Dakota confidential business.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes. Commission is meeting in an executive session pursuant to 6-09-35 and 44-04-19.2 to consider those items listed on the agenda under Bank of North Dakota confidential business. Only commission members, their staff, commission staff, and Bank of North Dakota staff will participate in the executive session. Any formal action taken by the commission will occur after it reconvenes in open session. I remind commission members and those present in the executive session that the discussion must be limited to the announced purposes. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 1 hour and will begin at 10:10 a.m.
Excuse me, Governor, could you amend that to approximately 15 minutes?
It will be approximately 15 minutes and will start at 10:11 a.m.
Thank you.
You are
Those guys might actually be better because they might listen.
Yeah,
Because
like,
that's the biggest thing.
session, the commission discussed those items listed on the agenda and no formal action was taken. And Justin, thanks for being on the spot, but we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks for the permission. back at 10:33 a.m. and we have Mr. Justin Kringstad with the North Dakota Pipeline Authority.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, everyone. So want to get started. I'll pass this out because of the timing. We weren't able to get information in your binders, but at the May meeting, the Commission and the Pipeline Authority issued an RFI for natural gas capacity from western North Dakota to eastern North Dakota. Before we start diving into the memo that you have in front of you, I first want to thank the two companies. I know they're watching, they're not here in the room, but for the last month, they've been diligently working to solve what is arguably one of North Dakota's top issues in the coming decades, is understanding how do we support our oil and gas sector in the West, support increase in industrial opportunities across a corridor across the state. And so the attention, the thoughtfulness in these proposals that were submitted, the completeness and the attempt to, again, solve one of our most important issues can't be overstated. So thank you to those teams that were working on this. And so the RFI went out to 9 companies. We received 2 responses on Tuesday. The 2 companies are in that table that you see. You have WBI Energy with their Bakken East project and the Intensity Infrastructure Partners, phase 1, phase 2. The submissions were made such that there was a public portion of the submission and there was a non-public portion of the submission. Due to the size and timing of it, they're not in your binders. Karen or myself will get you physical and digital copies of those to your offices for yourself and your staff to continue analyzing. But what I thought would be helpful today was just a very quick comparison, some of the high-level details. I know this does not do justice to the complexity of these systems, but I wanted to get on paper at least some of those, hit items of how the 2 projects look on paper. There are significantly more regulatory structured questions that we'll be diving into, market analysis as part of this review process. But as you start to walk through, I tried to hit on the 2 projects, the timing on page 1. You can see that 2029, 2030 timeframe, similar type timeframes for both proposals. Similar or the same pipe diameters in the west, 36 inches, and both systems proposing a 30-inch pipeline from the Underwood area to Cass County. Pipe capacities are on the table. The rate structure, or the regulatory structure, is one thing where these 2 diverge from each other. The WBI project proposing a more traditional FERC process. The Intensity project looking to do a PSC regulation. Hinshaw pipeline is the classification for it. There's some FERC interfacing if necessary for connectivity longer term. And you can see some of the rates. These are what are going to go into the negotiations as far as the market analysis and what is going to be the most appropriate fit for potential consideration for the capacity program that's available. The last 2 items in this table, the question that was lingering out for years now for most of us is trying to gauge exactly where the industry was at. This has evolved rapidly over the last 12 months. So both companies went out with open seasons to deliver natural gas to eastern North Dakota. You can see the interest that they received. That does not mean that those are commitments. That is just the level of interest from parties that responded through that process. There is likely some overlap in those numbers. Parties very commonly respond to both open seasons. And so in the east, those are the type of volumes we were looking at. In the west, both projects you were looking at over a BCF a day of interest. So still higher levels of interest of western segments of these systems, but growing demand in eastern North Dakota. On the back side of this memo, also in those submissions, you can see there's support letters and companies from market participants as well as communities and legislative leadership as well. And the next steps that I want to outline for you. So your offices, myself, reviewing this information, I would like to have a recommendation to you at your July meeting as far as what the steps would be moving forward. I'm not anticipating any recommendation for agreements getting signed or anything of that nature, but more or less to have a direction of which company would make the most sense for the state of North Dakota to continue working forward with and negotiating what that need might look like. So with that, I also included a couple maps in that packet that I passed around just for reference. And then we're going to be relying very heavily on that May memo that was sent out to the companies about how these decisions would be made, what evaluation criteria were going to be most important as we compare the two projects in far more detail than what you're looking at here on this table. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions now, but I'm looking forward to working with you and your staff here in the coming days and weeks as this important endeavor moves forward.
So capacity, we talked about the same pipeline diameter, but initial capacity is different. I mean, considerably. Million decatherms compared to 875,000. Is that just a pump issue or?
Correct. It's a compression decision. And
Okay.
and when you have physically the same diameter pipe, assuming that they have near identical pipe wall thicknesses and pipe ratings, you could
Yeah.
probably put that on par with each other. They're going to tailor it at the end of the day for the commitments that they receive.
Is there any difference, PSC versus FERC when you're trying to meet that criteria? But then there is a problem because if you hook up to an interstate pipeline, you're gonna have to address that issue, aren't you?
Correct. And so for a PSC regulated natural gas system, those are intrastate.
Yeah.
The moment you start interconnecting with interstate pipelines, so moving to the Alliance system or getting to WBI to get onto the Viking system, that triggers some need for FERC blanket certificates to be issued. And that is one additional step that would be required in that intrastate structure. And then there are questions that we'll be digging into as far as what happens for natural gas storage in the Williston Basin is not in North Dakota. It's in Montana, tied into interstate commerce, and then making deliveries across. And when do you start triggering issues with FERC as far as what's regulated, what's not, and what's allowed? So all that's going to be analyzed here in more detail.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, incredibly encouraging results from the companies. Again, hats off to the work they've been doing and continue to do here.
How many of these, like support letters, and I understand process, but the end use people are going to need gas that are willing to take gas. I'm assuming that to some degree or another, if this thing gets built, regardless of who builds it, some of these are interchangeable.
Yeah, as far as the communities, the industry.
Each individual company might have its preferred.
Yep.
Preferred pipeline company, but at the end of the day, they're going to take gas from anybody who sells it to them.
Correct, and that is laid out in those. So some of the companies are more ambiguous in their support. Some are very direct, saying they, for XYZ reasons, they want a FERC regulated pipeline or they want this or that company. So that's all I had for today. But I'll be seeing you here at the July meeting and most certainly sooner than that in any questions and follow-ups. But we'll get that information in front of you all.
There'll be lots of those.
Yeah.
Good information. Thank you.
We'll have the full presentations too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Jordan, you're up.
We got Tyler here with the ERC. So first up, so there's 3 items related to CERC, so the State Energy Research Center. So the first is an updated contract signed, for your consideration. So just a brief overview of the 2019 legislation designated the Energy and Environmental Research Center as the State Energy Research Center. And so with that designation came a designated funding stream targeting 3 specific tasks: exploratory research and having available scientific expertise for furthering state's interests, and also education and outreach, which includes Energy Hawks, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but with college students coming out west. But so with the State Energy Research Center, start out at $5 million per biennium. last session went up to 7.5 million. And they doing great work in terms of again, more the beginning stages, exploratory research, and then assisting in other studies. But this past session, then legislation was passed, Senate Bill 2159, that removed the restriction on high-level radioactive waste research. That's done in conjunction with, of course, Senator Hogue, who was the leader in both of those, also in conjunction with his pursuit of study on nuclear energy. So as far as the radioactive waste piece, that's part of the updated contract, is to reflect that language. And so this contract's for the upcoming biennium. And anything, Tyler, that you wanted to add?
Covered it well.
Any questions? Yeah, so this past session too, the sunset was circuit itself. The sunset was extended out to 2033. But this contract will still be a biennium by biennium basis for the contracts.
I'll move it.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
Thank you. So the next one, Senate Bill 2360, is forward a legislative, and that study was selected legislative management study related to geothermal energy. And Tyler can kind of give what the proposal is. The BDRC has been looking at doing a study like this for a while, and as I mentioned, the three tasks that CERC has, task 2 relates to having that, providing greater access to energy experts for timely scientific engineering studies to support the state's interests. So this study falls within task 2 to assist with this legislative management study.
Okay, Brett? Sure. Thanks, George.
So yeah, as Jordan explained, in the course of some of our past work, there's been promise for abandoned unplugged wells to serve as a source of geothermal energy at a high level. So based on that, and given the new Energy Secretary Chris Wright has expressed interest in geothermal energy as a reliable baseload renewable power source, we wanted to propose a study through task 2 of CERC to unpack this a little bit, do a full feasibility analysis. And then at the same time, the legislature had expressed interest in geothermal. And they passed that study bill. As Jordan mentioned, I had a conversation with Senator Hogue, and basically we were already planning to pursue this to a certain extent. It wouldn't be that much more work to wrap that up, the legislative management study, into our scope of work, which is what we have proposed here. So, yeah, basically we've got to looking at potential for oil and gas to serve as a source of geothermal energy. Also looking at geothermal electric generation, possible interconnection to MISO and SPP. Wrap that up into a report that'd be delivered to the Industrial Commission as well as legislative management. So it'd be a 9-month study wrapping up next spring, 250,000.
So move.
Second.
There was a lot of discussion at this at Western Governors Association. It's one of the rare places in energy where you have real bipartisan support. It makes it real simple. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
And the last thing, commissioners, under CERC is related to $2 million for salt caverns. Last session, more than 11 million had been appropriated to actually construct salt caverns. It turned out to not be nearly enough, and with now that there's 2 million for a business case analysis to keep pursuing that point.
Sure. So, and this actually goes back a couple more sessions. 21, I believe the legislature appropriated dollars for the ERC to do core sampling, actually drill some wells. So in that process, we found some bedded salts, drilled some wells out by Wilson, found the bedded salts, showed a lot of promise for salt cavern storage, various hydrocarbon products. So then in the 23 session, as Jordan mentioned, they wanted ERC to work with the private sector to actually construct up to 2 salt cavern storage facilities. The number was kind of a moving target. It ultimately ended up being it was 11.3 million was appropriated. 6 million was appropriated to the State Energy Research Center Fund. The 5.3 were federal funds. I think they were ARPA dollars that were ultimately reallocated at the end of the year. So leaving that 6 million in the State Energy Research Center Fund. Obviously, with the directive of the legislature being to construct a salt cavern, our commercial partners there were still too many unknowns for them to be able to commit financially to salt cavern development. So the 6 million were never spent over the prior biennium. So with this past session, they left the 2 million in there for us to do this business case analysis. There's 5 tasks identified in the proposal, but just to boil it down to 3 for you, I think 1, we're gonna engage commercial partners to identify basically product storage types, what they want to store, preferred volumes, and other market considerations. The second thing would be to cross-reference that information with the existing data we have on well logs, bedded salt locations, and basically try to come to what actually makes sense for siting. And then the third one would be wrap that up into engineering assessment, modeling simulations, regulatory analysis, and to a full cost estimate. And that's 18 months, so that puts us out to year-end 2026.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks, Deb. Thank you.
Let's do some outdoor heritage.
Okay, so this is the bulk of your binders today. Okay, before I jump into the financial update, I wanted to introduce Dave Dewald. He is the new chair that just got voted in at our last Outdoor Heritage Fund meeting. So I don't know if you want to give a little background on yourself or anything.
Thank you. I joined the Outdoor Heritage Fund 5 years ago as a member of the at-large conservation group. I've been there for the last 5 years now. In my previous life, I was a employee of the Natural Resources Conservation Service for 37 years, I'm sorry. And since then retired and now almost a full-time job. It's been great.
And then I'll also note, Brian Amundson with the Stockmen's Association was voted in as the new vice chair, assuming that if he gets reappointed, because his term is up. So pending his reappointment, that is who was voted in as the new vice chair for the Outdoor Heritage Fund Board, which was the previous position on the board until now Tyler Dawkins just turned out this month. So with that, I can jump into the financial portion at least. So right now there's a little over 27 million committed in the Outdoor Heritage Fund cash balance, and a little over 14 million is what's available today. I believe the total ask today is just over 12.5 million. So that would still leave just under 1.5 million that would be carried over from this biennium to next biennium if all of the projects were to be approved today by you. So there's 243 cumulative projects over the course of Outdoor Heritage Fund since 2013, and around 67 of those are active. That number changes on almost a daily basis as projects close out and then new ones start. So any questions on the financial portion? Okay. So there's this list. This is a list of all the projects that are going to be before you today that I'll kind of go through. I'll give some information on them, but if you want any further detail, let me know, as there's 17 of them, so I don't want to take too long on each one. But it does show their total project cost and then the OHF funds requested. That's actually the amount that the OHF advisory board is recommending for each project. So with that, I will jump into the first application, 26-1, which was the North Dakota Statewide Tree Planting Initiative. The applicant was the North Dakota Conservation District Employees Association. Their total project costs were just over 3.5 million, and their request was for 2.5 million. Their funding source for their match amounts were landowner obligations for cash, and then the soil conservation districts had in kind as well. Their major directive is B, which I can quick remind you, Directive A is providing access to private and public lands for sportsmen. Directive B is improving, maintaining, and restoring water quality, soil conditions, plant diversity, animal systems, and supporting other practices of stewardship to enhance farming and ranching. C was to develop, enhance, conserve, and restore wildlife and fish habitat on private and public lands. And then D was conserving natural areas and creating other areas for recreation through the establishment and development of parks and other recreation areas. So just to give a reminder as we go through these. So the summary of this project is to encourage and provide financial assistance to implement agroforestry practices, including farmstead, feedlot, and field windbreaks, wildlife and riparian plantings, buffers, and living snow fences. The OHF Advisory Board recommendation, they didn't have any contingencies with this project. There was no conflicts of interest. The funding vote was 11-0, so it was unanimous, and for that full amount of the 2.5 million. So any questions on that first one before I go to the next? Okay. Project 2 was the North Dakota Statewide Windbreak Renovation Initiative 5.0. The applicant was North Dakota Forest Service. Their total project costs are 1.2 million. Their OHF request was 900,000. They have both cash and in-kind match from landowners. Major Directive B again, and very similar. Their summary is to continue to offer financial assistance program for landowners to renovate their windbreaks by protecting, enhancing, and preserving essential forest resources. Similar to the last project, the advisory board had no contingencies. They voted on it 11-0 for the full $900,000. The third project is the Ryan Lake Prairie Trail and Outdoor Classroom. This was submitted by the Grand Forks Park District. Their total project cost was $335,000. The OHF request was for a little over $251,000. And they had two different sources of match. One was from the Park District cash, and then the other was other grants that they've received. And their major directive was Directive D. And the goal of the project is to convert their other half of Ryan Park into native prairie with a half-mile ADA accessible trail with benches and to connect their outdoor classroom with existing city greenway trails and their two existing fishing docks that are on the lake shore. The advisory board recommendation, there was no contingencies. It was voted on 9-2 for the full funding amount of the $251,250. Project 4, the title is the River's Edge Fishing Enhancement Project. The applicant was the city of Grand Forks. Their total project cost was $494,195. Their OHF request was for $155,450. And their funding sources came from the city of Grand Forks and then also the Garrison Diversion Conservancy District. And that's also with Major Directive D. And they are wanting to extend an existing trail that they already have, safety railing at the fishing sites, and have informational kiosks for trail users and anglers. The advisory board recommendation, there was no contingencies. The funding vote was 10-1 for the full $155,450. Project 6 is the Lost Lake Dam Fish Passage. The applicant was the McLean County Water Resource District. The total project cost was $74,802. The OHF request was for $51,599. The major directive C, this is the third of four, I believe, projects that they have on this creek to open up fish passage. And this is actually, they came and are requesting more. This was a project that was previously approved in the last grant round, and funding has changed a little bit, so they ended up coming back and requesting a little more to get this third of the four barriers open, which then leads to the river.
Painted Woods Creek would then be accessible by fish from Missouri River all the way up to.
So this was recommended by the board. There was no contingencies. The funding vote was 9-2 for that additional $51,599.
No contingencies, all unanimous votes.
Not all, but this was
Such-
probably the least, yeah, this is the least controversial voting I've had with the Outdoor Heritage
that
Fund
right?
since I started. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
All projects approved that were presented. So
Yep.
first time that's.
First time
happened.
ever. And this was also the largest
People are
that I've
getting-
been a part of.
People are getting better at knowing, like, how to do some of this stuff too.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, these.
Better application.
Yeah, the applications this round were all very strong. Yeah.
I'll move the recommendations.
I'm
unless
not
you
even
wanna
close to
go-
being done,
Well,
but
I was looking, okay.
unless you want me to be done, I can be.
Are there any, were there, well, let's start
There-
this
This,
way.
this next one is an access one.
Yeah, I mean,
26-7, the PATH
to
program.
be fair, I told Karen I had a ton of questions about this, but then I actually did some research on these projects and we are behind schedule. Were there any close votes?
No, they were all 9-2 or better.
Okay.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Any that you want to particularly highlight? Like, I mean, the tree planting's been
I
going
think-
on, right?
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of
Ducks
these have been
Unlimited has
going
gotten
on.
good at this.
I will highlight quick, North Dakota Parks and Rec Department did get their state parks enhancements that they wanted that has been denied previously by the board. They didn't get the full 1.29 million that they requested, but they did get $1 million. So that one was probably one of the more, the board really wanted them to try to go through legislation to get funding.
There's
And that was kind of what it was, because their request that they came with last time was for it was like 3 million. They wanted a lot. It was almost all the funding that was available.
Yeah.
And the board didn't like the look of giving it to a state agency over, a lot of these nonprofits, all of the funding that was available. So they kind of scaled it back a little bit and got some funding other areas, and then came back with a more.
Did they modify their project a little bit though?
The cost.
Somewhat originally?
Yeah, the cost of trees went down a little bit from what they initially previously had, but it was still pretty high. That was probably the most controversial piece of it, was because they want trees that are already,
Call.
yeah, they don't want to, do, because
And
they're
they're
obviously going to hold
expensive.
up better in a state park where you have kids running around and doing whatever, but that does come with a higher cost. So that was probably the most controversial component of that project. But,
And I think, and you can answer this because you've been there for 5 years while I've been in BC, but the statute directly allows to do projects from state agencies, but the board's philosophy has kind of been, state agencies have a funding mechanism. And so if there are worthy nonprofits that are in here, the problem with some of these projects, whether it's like Game and Fish or like Parks and Rec, this is always the last thing on their list. So unless they get fully 100% funded every legislative, I think one of the things we can do better with the Outdoor Heritage Fund is, educate them a little bit on agency funding at the appropriations level. Like, yes, Parks and Rec wants this, but Parks and Rec wants
a lot of
8 other things too that become, and that's before you have a summer storm where they have to divert resources to rebuild something somewhere and all of that. But I think they've, yeah, for sure.
The other thing that played into that is that Parks and Rec came to put dollars on their own property and not on private land. Game and Fish Department, when they come with a program to put dollars on private land for access or for habitat. So they're kind of different there. And, the Game and Fish will get funded a lot quicker than Parks and Rec with dollars going on their own property. That's been the philosophy of the Heritage.
The only other project I would probably highlight that is something that's completely new that OHF hasn't seen before would be the Smart Livestock Advancing terrestrial ecosystems, which is the GPS tracking for livestock. So that is a new one that OHF did decide to fund. They didn't fund it at the full request, just because of for fencing, they typically do a 40-60 cost share, and they wanted to stay consistent because they did request a 75-25. So it did get knocked down a little bit, but it is something that they're trying, which normally, again, it's kind of like an extenuating circumstance because GPS is supposed to be something that can't be moved. But we've done it before with like the buoy systems for green algae. And so it was kind of another one they decided to try and see how it works. So virtual fencing and the GPS, that's one that's new. And that one I think passed 9-2.
That also had an access portion.
And that had an access portion too.
So,
Yep.
so there was two projects this time that were totally accessed, one from Pheasants Forever and one from the Game and Fish. And there's 3 or 4 of them that had an access component. So habitat and access were rated very high this time. And thank you for coming to the policy meeting and stating your priorities. And I think it really helped us get through this last meeting.
When I met with Project Meadowlark last week, I mean, you're starting to see more and more of this with no-till, and I mean, it's all private land, right? Like, we don't create habitat on public land. If we don't, I mean, and with no-till and the ability, generational ranchers coming out of the business and their neighbors buying it to plant corn, and I mean, you're never going to stop those private land sales, nor should we engage in them. But
There's a fine line and there's some things we got to be sensitive.
But they're starting to get more sophisticated about it and really talk about how, because it also happens to be good for growing grass and soil health and all of the other things. So it's really fun to watch some of this stuff come around.
Now, the virtual fencing will allow the ranchers to fence areas that they've never been able to fence before, because the cowlers will be on the cow and they'll have their system in place where they can do it off their phone. They can install a fence.
Hopefully it's not like my English pointer who ran right through his virtual fence every time he had it. I had to put up a fence and put a electric fence on the fence, otherwise he would escape. So.
And to keep in mind that virtual fencing is only cross fencing, the outdoor,
Yep.
the boundary still has to be a regular fence.
Other than that, everything else they're projects that have pretty much similar, at least projects have been to OHF, and they were all either 9-2, 10-1, or 11-0 votes. So.
All right.
All right.
Did you redo your motion?
Yes. I move the projects recommendations.
Second. Is there discussion? Thank you guys very much. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
Okay, and I'll just really quickly just skim through the consideration of approval of the OHF policies and grant round deadlines. A lot of this was items that were discussed at the policy meeting that we held in May. Going back, OHF has never actually had a formal policy like all of our other boards have had. We just kind of had a 2-page document that we went off of and updated on occasion. So we put together an actual policy now to go off of. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things in it. Most of it's, you've seen it before. It's similar to our other programs, but that first and second page are just the general provisions and definitions. So those are, we looked over at a different time. Going to page 4, the extenuating and exceptional circumstances. These are all of these like eligible projects and everything are in Century Code. But I just wanted to note that we did add kind of some verbiage that the applicant must explain during their application process why their project should be considered an exceptional circumstance. And then the OHF advisory board will vote on whether the project actually falls under that category. And if passed, the project will be presented to the commission for final consideration. So just like what we were just talking about, this GPS, that was an exceptional circumstance. So that is something that we added into the verbiage. The matching funds we still have as a minimum 25% match funding. So that doesn't change. It can be cash, in kind, or indirect funding. On page 6, we have the very top labor costs. It's currently at $30 an hour, and this will change on an annual basis based on numbers provided by independent sector and the Bureau of Labor Statistics, just so it kind of keeps up with what the national cost is for labor. And then the application requirements, this is also new for 4.1. When someone's submitting an application, it's now gonna have to be accompanied by a contribution of $100. This was the only grant program that we did charge a fee, an application fee. So we are going to be charging an application fee now going forward because it's the same amount of work, if not even more than a lot of our other grant programs. So we're trying to be more consistent across the board for that. Page 7, the application deadline and grant round dates. This was voted on and approved at our policy meeting. Applications in a calendar year must be delivered to the commission on or before May 1st and November 1st. Barring conflicts, that can change, but the advisory board will meet on the last Tuesday in June and the second Tuesday in December for the 2 grant rounds. Previously, they were May and October, but based on timelines, December just made more sense because a lot of times if an applicant got funding in October, they wouldn't be using it anyways until at least March or April. So a lot of members wanted it in January, but with legislative session being every other year, we agreed that December would be better. So we did adjust the timelines a little bit. Other than that, page 9, OHF, the contracts. I just wanted to highlight that we do have in there, the commission shall provide a proposed contract to grantees within 60 days of the commission approving the project. And then the grantee will then have 60 days to execute a contract. If a contract isn't executed by the grantee within that 60 days, the award will be canceled unless an extension of time is granted by the commission. And then I also want to note in that same section, we did add that if a contract has exceeded the contract expiration date by 90 days and no extension request has been received, the commission may decommit the remaining funds from the project and turn those funds back to the Outdoor Heritage Fund so that we don't have to have the same situation where I'm bringing a bunch of projects to you guys to have decommitted.
Did you discuss whether it should have been a may or a shall? Because I'm not sure if we have, no, and
Yeah.
I mean, this is the work you did to find these abandoned projects that I think were just kind of stagnant sitting there was actually important. And if people aren't going to finish this stuff, then we should turn it back to people who use it. So, but I think either way, this is better. It's formalized, which it wasn't before.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of
We have the
saying
word
really,
may, but it
really
it
good
pretty
work on
much is
doing
more,
that.
it probably is more of a shall unless, again, there's some extenuating circumstance in there, but it'll probably more of a shall than a may, especially when a contract is expired, we reach out to them. It's not like they don't hear from us.
Okay.
We do the
So-
same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you give them that latitude
And then take.
and then it's like, apparently you don't need it or you're not gonna finish the project and
It's interesting which projects were latent. Like, the private nonprofits tend to do a little better, I think, sometimes and sometimes it's a small community who somebody gets elected who didn't know it existed. So like the human infrastructure doesn't exist for transition.
And then the last thing I want to highlight on this is just the project duration and contract modifications. It's noted that it must be completed in the specified time of the contract, but they can request an extension up to a year. And if they want another extension, we can consider it based on the circumstance of why it needs to be extended. And then for contract modifications, if anything is considered substantive, it'll go back to the Outdoor Heritage Fund Board for their approval. But if it's not considered, a material change, the Office of the Industrial Commission, we will have the authority to move funds from one deliverable to another, not to exceed 10% of the total project cost, which was approved also by the advisory board at the policy meeting. So it's kind of under our discretion if we feel it's a change that isn't material that we feel comfortable doing and it's under the 10%, we can do it. But if it's anything that we feel is a little too much of a change or over that 10%, it will have to go back to the board for their approval.
Sounds like you built in the right amount of structure and flexibility, which is always the balance, right?
So with that, that is all I have.
And we don't have to approve that. That's your guys's, right?
We would need an approval from you, but then this will actually go to our OHF advisory board every August when we hold our policy meeting annually. And then if there's any changes that are substantive that'll have to come back to you for an approval.
so moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General? Governor?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks for all the work you've done, Brent, on this. This has been a great, time saver that we've gone through, and it's good to have the policy in place, and thank you for all that.
Thank you, Dave.
Hi, Phil. Sorry, Governor. Got in the way.
Bill.
Hey, Karen. Keep this fairly quick. Only got a couple ones that are highlighted on your agenda. The biggest update is the State Resource Management Plan, Bureau of Land Management. If you recall, the feds at the end of the last administration finalized this in the very last week. This was the one that effectively stopped all future development of coal and severely restricted oil and gas development. Earlier this month, DOJ and Interior agreed to stipulate with us and essentially confess error that they didn't adequately consult with the state or consider the economic impacts, which seems fairly obvious. And so we entered that stipulation with the court, and last week the court entered a stipulated injunction prohibiting BLM from applying that new RMP while the current administration reconsiders it. And so the 1980s RMP, which has been in place for the last 4 decades, is going to remain in effect while the Interior reconsiders its resource management plan for North Dakota. So it was a good outcome last week.
What's the timeline on that, Phil, for the reconsideration?
I would be guessing, but it's probably going to be extended. So I think it's good that we have this injunction in place.
Sure.
Is it eligible for CRA?
That is an interesting question as well.
Good, because I think you'll see that
Uh-huh.
move too as well.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I have a feeling I know at least one Codell that will be very interested in trying to do that.
Yep, and if they CRA, prior administration's resource management plan, that would just be another bullet into this one.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest update. Then the other two above it, the MATS rule and the carbon rule. EPA put out its proposed repeal rule for both of those end of last month. So we are busily working on comment letters in support of those repeals, and those will be getting filed in early August. Separately related to MATS, just for your awareness, there was a environmental activist group lawsuit against a 2-year extension. So MATS had a 2-year extension granted to the compliance deadline, essentially premised on it's not technically achievable and it's going to hurt our energy grid. So they gave a 2-year compliance deadline. A lawsuit challenging that extension was filed in DC. We anticipate the federal government and the affected industry, EGUs, are going to be able to defend it, but we're monitoring it in case the state can contribute something of value to those proceedings. And then on the next page, just for your awareness, the DAPL operation, that's the latest lawsuit trying to stop the operation of DAPL while the NEPA assessment's undergoing consideration. The court in DC denied their request and dismissed their lawsuit. They have appealed that to the DC Circuit, so we'll be defending that before the DC Circuit. And then, just for your awareness, the New York and Vermont lawsuits that we're participating in, the federal government has also sued both those states. So both those proceedings have been doing some procedural wrangling while the courts figure out how to combine the lawsuits and the claims by both the plaintiff states and the United States. But I think that's probably a good development, that the United States also participating as the plaintiff.
That's the definition of likelihood of success small, but if they would, it would be absolutely devastating.
Yes, those two lawsuits, or those two laws by those two states would be devastating, and they're already encouraging other states to consider similar laws, which would also be significantly bad. And those are the major updates I had, unless you gentlemen had any questions about any of the pending matters, most at least the federal rule challenges continue to be paused while we wait for the federal government to propose what it's going to do next formally.
Perfect. Great. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Nathan and Mark.
Morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I feel like we should salute your tie.
My mother would appreciate it. She bought this for me, brought it to my office on yesterday, Tuesday. It was Tuesday, and yesterday she fell and broke her hip.
Oh, no.
You
all right? Other than that?
She's having surgery this afternoon.
Shoot.
So she's in good spirits right now.
That's good.
She's
Give her
gonna
my
kick on it.
best.
Somebody recognized the tie.
That's great.
Subtle.
I think the first order of business is the order that Mark's going to present, and then we'll go on to a resolution that we've prepared.
The one order we have before us is to approve an exceptional horizontal exception location well 300 feet from the east side of a stand-up 1,280 acre spacing unit, 25 and 36 of the spacing unit. And this, a little background here. So back in January, we heard a case for this well, case 31500. You can see the black line is an existing well, the black dotted line is an existing well, the dash green line right along the section line was a proposed exception or lease line well. And Cord has drilled the 9 wells going east and west in the dotted lines. Those wells are drilled and completed now. And they applied to revoke the permit for that lease line well, which they're allowed to do. They actually have a larger interest in that lease line spacing unit than Neptune does, so they likely could have prevailed in that proceeding. But during that proceeding, I asked a question, have you thought about moving the well a little further to the west to get away from the Cord wells a little bit and apply for an exception location? And they listened, and they brought another application in for this exception location well. And Oasis is the Cord entity in this case, still opposed the lease line well. So they moved it over 150 feet further away. The lease line well was originally planned at 200. The exception location well is at 350 feet. And in conjunction with the lease line or exception location well, that well in the dash black line, they're going to refracture, stimulate that well. That's going to finish out developing those reserves on the east half of 25 and 36. So this is the exception location well. The Cord was concerned in the lease line, or in the lease line case, that they could potentially collide with the wells. You can see it very well, but they're back drilled across the section line, which is very common nowadays. They no longer have collision concerns, but they still were opposed to this exception location well. And Neptune estimates that the exception location well will recover 550,000 barrels of oil. And Oasis was concerned that, well, if it's at that location, it might drain reserves from the west half of 30 and 31. And Oasis's wells are completed as close as 224 feet from that section line, and they're hydraulically fracture stimulated. So they will compete for the oil. The order does point out that setbacks are not meant to stop the flow of oil. They're meant to give people time to develop it, to compete for that resource on either side of the line. That's what setbacks have done since we first implemented it in North Dakota. That's what a setback means. It is a distance, but it's really a time mechanism to allow people to compete for that oil. As I mentioned, buildbacks are a standard operating procedure anymore. There are many instances like this in the Bakken now. Some include Oasis in these similar type of situations. So I'm recommending you approve this order, approving the exception location well that Neptune has proposed.
So moved. And then I got a question.
Second.
So, Mark, they're opposing the well, but if we don't do the well, then we have trapped reserves, which would be waste.
Correct. And in this situation, Neptune obviously has a vested interest in developing that east half of 25 and 36. Since Oasis could control that lease line spacing in it well, that well would not be drilled in, and they'd be forced to move over closer to their existing well that they want to refracture stimulate, and that's just less efficient development of what's left on that east half.
Yeah. I mean, we have a responsibility, and quite frankly, we're charged to make sure that we are protecting correlative rights and preventing waste. But
and the
I'm fine with it. It just seems odd that we'd be asked, no, don't do that.
And the commission has long recognized that when we have these setbacks, with horizontal drilling, we have this no man's land in between that.
Yeah.
And I think wisely, we decided to put wells in there to develop that because we would have left millions and millions of barrels of reserves behind if we hadn't done that.
Exactly. Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes.
You.
Senate wells.
Yeah, so this topic refers to Senate Bill 2397 and specifically the development and Senate well language that was within the bill. The resolution that you see kind of outlines the development and Senate well language definition in the upper part of that resolution. You guys have that?
Yes.
it's 21A in your binders.
Next section kind of runs through the tax implications or the incentives that are dealing with that. That's, I guess, section 4. And then it runs through the kind of some qualifications where operators had to have drilled a certain number of wells in the prior biennium in order to be able to apply for this. Title 38 of North Dakota Century Code and Chapter 3808 related sections is the oil and gas regulation. The NDIC can delegate its authority for Chapter 3808 for oil and gas regulations and has thus done so to the DMR. A resolution like this has been done in several areas, so this isn't something new that we're requesting, just a slightly different way of going about it. The example that we want to represent is under the stripper well certification program, where it also indicates that the NDIC is to certify those, and the DMR certifies those through the process, sends those to the tax department. That was done through the promulgation of rules, and this particular resolution or statute, the DMR believes is prescriptive enough to not have to go through a rule process, instead create the process for which this will be administered. The DMR has a draft framework for that, which takes effect or would take effect July 1st, so just in a few days. So that's already created and is essentially seeking delegation of authority or approval to create the process, get the program kicked off, periodically report back to the commission on the progress of the statute. So that's essentially what this is saying. Like I mentioned, the first part of this is simply the language of the statute, and then the last paragraph would direct the DMR to adopt the policy for operators to apply for wells and get certified, and then report back to the commission periodically.
Oh, that'd be good. I'd move it.
Second.
Thank you for doing this, 'cause
Yep.
we don't have the expertise.
There could be hundreds of these, we didn't think.
Yeah.
This is very technical and, yeah, and if you just bring back, how you went through them, reviewed them, you got the policy in place, frameworks there.
I also think, yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna want, I mean, we're standing up a new program. They're trying to do something. I mean, they tried the refrac thing and it never really took off. Like, we want to know if this is actually incentivizing and working.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have had calls from 3 or 4 different operators over the last month asking about it, so it does appear like there's interest in this particular one. Yeah.
Okay.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes. I would just like to point out, we got ourselves 1 minute ahead of schedule. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. There's no other
You
business.
don't- Okay. Happy for it.
There's lots of other business, but not you guys.
Oh, we'll see you,
Monday,
yeah,
both of them.
yes. I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of our members from across the United States are looking forward to your report, and
Yeah.
your overview of oil and gas production and the sharing of resources and the Industrial Commission's support of conversion wells. I think people they're gonna see this as a very unique state with some very unique things going on. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
we're working on the presentation. I think it highlights all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They are going to be presenting at the Regional Ag Directors Conference, which has a national theme to it because we have a lot of national directors, secretaries, and commissioners coming in. So,
Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
yeah,
I
thank
haven't been
you.
to Medora in a long time, so.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Go ahead.
Since last night.
Thank you.
There a motion to approve previous minutes?
Yes. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes. Compensation here.
Yes, so next on the agenda is a recommendation for the compensation increases for our agency leaders who continue to lead with excellence and dedicated commitment to North Dakota citizens and businesses, and supporting you in the delivery of your responsibilities. I also just want to mention too, on behalf of the administrative office, it's truly a pleasure to work with all of our agency leaders and their teams. We enjoy working with them and we learn from them every day. So what I'm recommending is the 3% legislatively approved increase for the first half of the biennium, the 25-27 biennium. Additionally, for Deanne Ament, I am also recommending an equity increase, which was included in Governor Armstrong's executive budget, and it was also included by the legislature in the appropriation for the Industrial Commission budget. Deanne has served as the Public Finance Authority Executive Director since 2010, but then she has also taken on the responsibilities of the Building Authority, the Student Loan Trust, and then the significant financings related to the Transmission Authority and the legacy bond issuance for infrastructure. And the other reason we want to see this equity increase for Deanne relates to planning for succession for her position. So also recommending that equity increase for her. And then lastly, in this memo, it is a salary increase for the executive director position of the 3%, should you choose to approve that.
So one thing I like to state, I know that the governor had a recommendation and the legislature certainly has addressed that. In part, yes, because of the duties, but in part because when you look at what's comparable, this brings it in line. So I think that needs to be just stated. I appreciate the extra workload. We all do extra work, but this at least gets it up to a comparable level. So I would move it with that.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is consideration of the renewal of the professional services contract for the oil and gas research program. We have had Mr. Brent Brannon serving as the director of the oil and gas research program since 2008. And just as a reminder, we are continuing to transition all of our professional services contracts to a biennial basis, and then also incorporating in standardized language that has been recommended by the Attorney General's office. So we are accomplishing that in this contract as well. As I mentioned, Brent has served in the position since 2008. And since the inception of the program in 2003, this grant program has funded 121 projects totaling just over $100 million. And Brent has assisted the commission in carrying out the objectives of this program for the majority of its 22 years. He brings us industry, technical expertise, administrative support, every grant round. And as far as that scope of work, he really covers from the application review to kind of managing through the research council management meetings, grant contract execution, and then helping us with the review of reporting requirements that are required of the grant recipient. So this scope of work is really important to the execution of the program. And we are very, very pleased that he's willing to consider and to continue serving in this role. So I do recommend approval of the renewal of this contract.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So is this getting it in line with where our intent was as we talked before, going to biennial? Is this one of the last ones, or we still have a few more of these contracts we have to get
This
into
is,
this framework?
Commissioner, this is the last one that we are moving to the biennial
Okay.
basis. We do still have the Lignite Research Program Technical Advisor contract to consider, but that will be coming to you at the July meeting.
Okay,
And then all of our contracts will be on that biennial basis.
okay, good. Good. Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
But in regard to the Lignite Research Program Technical Advisor contract, we are going to be bringing that contract before the July meeting. But in the meantime, what I'd like to seek from you is approval for a 60-day extension on the current contract, which expires on July 1st. We just want to give them a little extra time to get some reporting in. It's been a really busy first half of the year with 2 grant rounds for the Lignite Research Program. So it's just a matter of getting some monthly reports and invoices in. And we think a 60-day extension on that contract would be helpful.
I'll move the extension.
Yeah, second. Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes.
And then the last item for the administrative office, I will turn it over to Jordan.
Yeah, Commissioners, continuing on the theme of nuclear energy, as we just highlighted last meeting, there's a House Bill 1025 authorized or mandated really a study committee on nuclear energy, and one of the members of that committee is to be appointed by you gentlemen. And so the recommendation, as I mentioned last meeting, Claire Vigasaw, your transmission authority director, is very interested, and so he is our recommendation to you to be appointed with his industry experience and his expertise and knowledge and his desire to when it comes to grid his experience in the industry, and then his desires to ensure grid reliability. And in the memo, it just highlights that last year he had a conference at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is focused on nuclear energy. Had a great experience there, and he also has toured Xcel's Prairie Island nuclear facility. And he keeps up and he follows the industry, and so as your transmission authority director, we feel he'd be a great choice to recommend for that appointment.
I'll move Claire Vegas out of representatives.
Second. He's kind of an abrasive guy, but
I was gonna say that I thought the Attorney General's late minute campaign push was pretty effective, but at the end of the day, I'm a Brooklyn Claire. Roll call.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes. By the way, if you ever have to miss a meeting, we're putting you on commission. I know I've already talked about it.
And that concludes the admin office business.
Mm,
Very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
That was a lot to think.